Thank you.
And as you know, it's a very important lecture series. A lecture series for a very important cause, and that cause is to celebrate the India's glorious 75 years of independence. Friends, as you know, in the past, we have done 58 lectures, and today is the 59th lecture. And in the past, the lectures which we have done, they are of very eminent persons in various diversified domains. It's not only the agricultural research in which we are focusing, but the policies, the issues, challenges, strategies, and also the motivational lectures and the lectures connected with health, COVID, yoga, many topics we have covered. And that too for the benefit of not only our ICAR scientists, but our large number of our vice chancellors, they joined this platform. The senior faculty from the universities, they joined this platform. And also the program is live streamed for the benefit of the students. And this has become a very popular program because this program is giving a lot of information to our eminent audience. In the same series, today we have a lecture of a very important personality, international figure, and that is Professor Gurdev Singh Khush, a well-known figure. He doesn't require any introduction. As we know, that Professor Khush, who led the rice breeding program of IRRI for 35 years, which resulted in a green revolution in rice. So that contribution is well known across the world. But for the benefit of the audience, I just want to refresh their memories by giving a brief introduction. Professor Khush was born in Roorkee, Jalandhar, in the Punjab. He did his graduation from the government Agriculture College, Ludhiana, which is now called as the PAU, Punjab Agriculture University, during 1955. I was not even born that time. PhD from the University of California, Davis, California, in 1960. Assistant Geneticist, University of California, Davis, 1960 to 67. Then he was the plant breeder at International Rice Research Institute, the most prestigious international institute in the Philippines, in which he worked from 1967 to 72, where he made remarkable contribution in the field of rice. Then he worked as the adjunct professor, University of California, Davis, 2002 to 2019, and he is presently working as the adjunct professor emeritus, University of California, Davis, from 2019 till date. Dear friends, the world population, as you know, doubled from 3 billion in 1960 to 6 billion in 2000. The world rice production increased 3 times during the same period. For example, from 200 million tons in 1960 to 600 million tons in 2000. Dr. Cantrell, who was the Director General of IRRI, while commenting on his contributions, while commenting on Professor Khush's contribution, he said very important lines. While Dr. Khush's name may not have passed the lips of many, but his life's work has passed the lips of almost half the humanity. A great and remarkable contribution, Professor Khush. He has earned many, he has been conferred with many awards, and the most prestigious award being the Borlaug Award, the World Food Prize, which is next to the Nobel Prize, the Ramia Medal in 1997, BP Paul Medal 2000, Padma Shri Award in 2000, Swaminathan Award in 2006, BP Paul Memorial Award in 2013, and many more to his credit. And he has received many other international awards like Japan Prize in 1987, International Agronomy Award during 1987, the World Food Prize, as I already told, that was conferred on him in 1996, and the Rank Prize in Nutrition in 1998. There are many contributions, many rich publications, many cited publications by him, and many other contributions, which I'll not take time because we all are very eager to listen to Professor Khush. Professor Khush, thank you very much, sir, for giving us this opportunity and for accepting our invitation on behalf of Indian Council of Agriculture Research. And this particular platform is today being joined by many vice chancellors, many directors, our deputy director generals, and maybe in a short time, our deputy after the director general, Dr. Mahapatra, will also join. So the floor is yours, and I request you to kindly deliver your talk. Thank you, sir. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Agrawal, for your kind introduction. I am grateful to you, Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. Tilak Sharma, for inviting me for delivering this very important lecture, for which I was looking forward to, because we are celebrating the 75 years of our independence. We have made remarkable achievements during those 75 years, and the Green Revolution is one of them. Green Revolution will be written in the history of the world, history of India, in golden letters, because it led to the lot of not only food security, but in general development. Several of the previous speakers, particularly Dr. Prada, talked about various achievements of the Green Revolution. And in addition to the production of major advances in producing food grains, which increased from 50 million tons to 308 million tons at present, there are equally important developments in the other food items, foods and vegetables, for example. Vegetable fruits increased from 95 million metric tons to 320 million tons. And India is one of the second largest vegetable growers in the world. Milk increased from 17 million tons to 198 million tons, and India became the largest milk producer. Fish production increased from 0.75 million metric tons to 13 million metric tons. And country's population increased fourfold in 1950 to 2019-20, but the food production increased sixfold during the same period, and we are celebrating these achievements. Similarly, there has been a lot of development, overall development in the country, which led to the human development, improvements in our living standards, and our general welfare of the population. For example, in addition to the availability of abundant food, which we have 70 million tons in our buffer stock, we are exporting 20 million tons of rice for the benefit of the rice consumers all over the world. Improved life expectancy, which increased from 32 years average age in 1950s to 68 years in 2019-20. The poverty reduction, there used to be so much poverty before Green Revolution. For example, 70% during the 1970s, people were poor, 20% now in 2019. Child mortality, there used to be 210 deaths per 1,000 in 1970 to 32 per 1,000 in 2020. The literacy has increased from 11% at the time of independence to 73%. These are remarkable achievements which we should celebrate during this year. I would like to put the Green Revolution in context of many other breakthroughs which have occurred during the 20th century. For example, I listed 4 of these. These were listed or identified by Dr. Ralph Ciceron, who is a president of the US National Academy of Sciences. In his annual lecture to the Academy in 2013, he listed these 4 major breakthroughs: breaking the DNA code, which led to remarkable achievements in molecular biology, biotechnology, in human health, creation of all kinds of pharmaceuticals. This was a major achievement. The man on the moon, that was another major achievement which led to a lot of benefits for humankind. The communication breakthroughs, for example, then the elimination of smallpox and polio from the planet. These viruses used to be curse for the humanity. A lot of people used to die. Many became maimed, and these were known since the historical times these viruses were creating all kinds of difficulties. So elimination of these two viruses from the human population is really a major achievement. Finally, Dr. Ciceron listed the 4th one, which is the Green Revolution. Green Revolution, of course, not only led to food security, and it led to general development, living of standards, and tremendous benefits for the humanity. Before the Green Revolution, there used to be a lot of famines. For example, in 19th century, there were 4 famines in India. In 20th century, we had famine in Bengal. There were similar famines in China when 6 million people died. There were famine in Bangladesh, Ethiopia. Now, we do not have any of those curses of famines because of the Green Revolution. Before I start talking about the latest developments in plant breeding, I would like to spend about 5 minutes on the Green Revolution in rice for the benefit of younger generations, for the students who may have heard about the Green Revolution, but they really are not familiar what led to the Green Revolution in rice, for example. So this was the type of rice which was grown before the Green Revolution. The varieties were very tall, they would lodge, fall over, and the yield was poor, and they were very long growth duration, 150, 160, or even 180-day growth duration. So the average yield of rice at that time was only 2 tons per hectare. This Green Revolution in rice was the result of modification of the rice plant type. And I showed you this slide, which has 2 types of rices, very old historical slide, because I used to show this to the visitors to explain the differences between the 2 types. The tall plants of old variety with the droopy leaves, and the new plant type, which has short stature, lodging resistance, dark green leaves, and the 2 are shown together in a plot. in plots. You can see the tall traditional rice on the left has it can produce about 3 to 4 tons maximum 4 tons of rice grain. The new types which are lodging resistant, they can produce up to 10 tons per hectare. And this was the result in differences in the harvest index, where with the old varieties, you could get about 30% grain, rest was strong. With the new variety, you can get 50% grain. And so that's one major difference. The next major difference was in the responsiveness to the fertilizer. Because with the old varieties, even if you add fertilizer, you will not get the benefit because there will be even more logic. And with the new variety, IR8 exemplified here, the yield continues to increase as you add the fertilizer. So that's a major difference, because then you can increase much higher amount of rice with the new varieties because of nitrogen responsiveness. So these were the two most important differences which led to the breakthrough in increasing the yield of rice. Now, I mentioned old varieties. Some were photoperiod sensitive, they take 180 days. Non-sensitive types were even 150 to 160 days. So the farmers in the tropics could get only one crop of rice during the rainy season. But this growth duration was progressively reduced from 150 to 135, which was for IR8. The newer IR8 is here. Newer varieties are 115, 120, but this one, IR36, is 115 days growth duration. And the yield of these varieties is same, whether it's 125, 130, or 115. And the beauty of this was that farmers could get 2 crops of rice, where only one was grown. This was in the tropics and subtropics, so that this led to the major increases in rice production. This shows the differences, the contrast of the old varieties and new varieties. This PTB21 is 180 days. It's a photosensitive. PETA, which is 150 days, IR8 135 days, IR36 is 115 days. And this IR36 type are the varieties which are grown in most of Asia now. Then the improvements in grain quality, very important, because some of the variety like IR8 had thick and bold grains with chalkiness. The newer varieties have much improved grain quality with long cylinder and translucent grains. IR64 here is one of the most widely grown variety, and it is the best cooking quality, palatability. Then, of course, there were improvements needed in disease and insect resistance, and rice is notorious for a lot of diseases and insects. Here is slide. This shows the virus, one of the viruses which is very problematic, particularly in the tropics, and this is called grassy stunt. It was really devastating during the outbreaks. And this shows the difference between the healthy and the infected rice plant. Infected rice plants do not produce any grain, so it's a very total loss. To develop the resistance, we screened a lot of germplasm, and finally we found a wild species of rice called Oryza nivara, which is the very good source of resistance. By backcrossing 3-4 times, we were able to transfer this gene from wild species into the improved plant types. For example, here are two lines which are highly resistant and a very good plant type, and the middle is the susceptible line. And using these resistant lines, it was possible to transfer this gene into many, many improved varieties. Then you have this another disease called bacterial blight, or sometimes it's called bacterial blight. This is one of the serious diseases. I remember in 1954, there was a big outbreak of this disease in eastern India and Bihar and UP. And the government called experts from Japan to look at what the disease was, and they of course identified it was the bacterial blight. And this shows that one gene can give so high level of resistance. You can see the line here, which does not have any gene for resistance. IR20 has one gene, but then the one variety with one gene are not everlasting because of the changes in the races of this blight organism. You get the breakdown. But it has been possible to combine 2 or 3 genes together, which gives much more longevity, more stability of resistance. Here are lines with 2 genes, and 3 genes, which have been, these genes have been combined into the different lines together. Then there are a lot of insects which are serious, and most serious is the brown plant hopper. This brown plant hopper is very devastating. It multiplies very rapidly, and about 18 days, the new generation comes, and by the time rice is in about middle life of the plant, these insects attack the crop, and you can see this is the type of damage they cause. It's called the hopper burn. This hopper burn is one of it used to be very serious during the outbreaks of brown plant hopper. Similarly, the donors for this insect resistance were identified. These were used in breeding, and many varieties have been developed with the resistance to this insect, and which have stabilized the rice production. So this is the result of this multiple resistance, where you can see the 2 varieties, IR36 and IR42, which have multiple resistance. Then there are varieties like Peta, Digiogen, which are susceptible, and the value of resistance is obvious. And most of the varieties, Green Revolution varieties, were developed with multiple resistance. So this was the impact of these high-yielding varieties with the resistance, and this was such an important technology that the acceptance of the new varieties was so rapid. Within about 20-25 years, the whole rice area in Asia was planted to improved varieties. So it led to major increases. For example, rice production increased from 200 million tons in 1960 to 600 million tons in year 2000, and the important impact of this was the reduction in the prices of rice. The price of rice went down 50%, and this was very helpful in the poor segment of the society, who spent 50 to 60% of their income on food grains. this is this rice production. In this slide, you can see the area under rice in India has remained same, no increase. 42 to 45 million hectares every year from the beginning, and look at the production increase and on the productivity increase, which has led to the major availability of food grains. And it's because of these increases that India has been able to export 15 to 20 million tons of rice in the world. Because of this, these increases in productivity or the yield potential, it was possible to achieve save the lot of area which would have needed for feeding the present population if we were growing rice at the yield levels of 1960s. And to feed the present population, we will need this much additional area to feed the present population. So what's the present situation of food security at the present? We have still 200 million Indians which are food insecure due to lack of purchasing power, although we have enough food, but because of the lack of purchasing power, poverty, unemployment, we still have 200 million Indians which are food insecure. 40% of the children below 5 years of age are malnourished and stunted. So widespread malnutrition. These are some of the problems which we will have to, or we are addressing as we move forward. So what are the problems facing the Indian agriculture? We need improved varieties or varieties with even higher yields, as well as more yield stability and with better nutrition. Then we have, of course, problems of with our soils, which are not as productive as they should be, stress, water resources, poor crop diversity. So I will spend major time on the breeding approaches and then spend some time on soils and water problems. So the research approaches are to develop the more resilient crop varieties using breakthroughs in genetics and molecular biology, develop biofortified crop varieties which have better nutrition, improve the soil health, improve water management, and improve crop diversity. Discovery of new genes for crop improvement is one of the new achievements, so that we can use these new genes for crop improvement. For example, there are a lot of new genes, but I will list these 4 ones which are quite interesting. KRN2 gene, it increases the number of grains in maize cob, one of the very important genes. Similarly, OSTRR gene increases the number of grains in the rice panicle, which we can use for increasing the yield of these cereals. Then there is a Highlander gene which has been identified in Arabidopsis. It produces the sterile progeny. You know, when plant breeders are looking for male sterile lines to produce the hybrids, sometimes the male sterile lines are not available. Even in rice, where the hybrid rice have been grown for some time, several years, only one male sterility source is available. That's the only one. Similarly, in other crops, sometimes it's difficult. But using this Highlander gene from Arabidopsis, it's possible to produce male sterile progenies, which can be used. So this is one way to produce newer male sterile progenies for hybrid breeding. Then this very interesting gene in wheat, which has been identified for biological nitrification inhibition. So this is the wild wheat. It's quite closely related to wheat. It's Limus racemosus. And this has a gene or a gene segment in one of the chromosomes, which inhibits the nitrification, because when we add the fertilizer, a lot of fertilizer is lost because of the nitrification. But this gene inhibits nitrification so that the fertilizer is available for the plants. It has been transferred into wheat, and the wheat gives the higher yield because it can utilize the nitrogenous fertilizers much more efficiently. Application of gene editing for crop improvement has been one of the very, very important breakthroughs during the last 10 or 12 years or so. And this has given us lot of opportunity to create new variations, new genes, rather than using the mutation breeding, which was laborious, as well as there were many other problems because there were a lot of other some of the deleterious effects were produced by the mutations. But with this gene editing application, it's now possible to produce new genes, new variations. This is our government has also given or passed the order that SDN1, SDN types of gene editing do not require the regulatory processes stipulated for the GM crops. So this is a very welcome decision, and our scientists will make use of this discovery. Some gene-edited crops are already in existence for the mildew resistance wheat, which has been produced from through gene editing. The gene-edited barley, for example, where the viviparous has been eliminated, and then the gene-edited potato. I will show you. This is the gene-edited wheat, which has mildew resistance, and the gene-edited barley, where some of the varieties have, which are viviparous, where the grains start germinating in the heads, and this problem has been eliminated through gene editing technique. A potato, gene-edited potato, at Texas A&M University in USA, they have produced this potato. As you know, potato starch is used in a lot of manufacturing, lot of products. Paper, for example, in paper production, the starch is used. And potato starch has two kinds of starches. It has amylose and amylopectin. Amylopectin is the more branch type of starch, which is used in these synthetic and for producing the industrial materials. And the potatoes with this amylopectin are more important, more useful, and they were preferred as compared to the normal potato starch. So through this gene editing, potatoes have been produced which have only amylopectin, not the amylose. Then, of course, genetic engineering has been used for producing a lot of new varieties, new genetic innovations. And unfortunately, our country has not made use of the benefits of GM technology due to the moratorium on GM crops. Only GM crop we grow is cotton, and you can see the cotton which has the Bt gene, and the cotton which does not have, and you can see the difference. And this has led to major increases in cotton production in the country, doubling of the production, and a reduction in the insecticide use. It has benefited the country greatly. Unfortunately, we have not made use of other technologies of genetic engineering. Sorry, this is the conventional boll of cotton, which has this pink bollworm, which is very serious insect, does a lot of damage. This is the Bt cotton. But in other countries, this technology of genetic engineering for producing the highly resistant crops to the insects has been utilized. This corn, for example, this is the Bt corn. These are the corn cobs which have been attacked by the European corn borer. And this type of now the Bt corn is grown in many countries. In the United States and Canada, almost 90 to 100% of the corn which is grown is Bt corn and has the gene from Bacillus thuringiensis, which gives this high level of resistance. Similarly, there are the Bt Brinjal. You remember, probably many of you may remember, about 15 years ago, there were a lot of controversy whether India should introduce the Bt Brinjal, which does not suffer any damage from the insects, but the government decided not to introduce it. But this Bt Brinjal has been introduced in Bangladesh, and also the Philippines has done all the regulatory work, and it should be probably will be released very soon. Then we have other GM crops like canola, which is very widely grown in the US, Australia, Brazil, and those Argentina, many countries. And Australia released the GM canola recently, which is now has been introduced because it has good level of drought tolerance. So that's why it's very suitable for the Australian conditions. So we have these numerous cases where we can use the GM technology for developing the newer crops with insect resistance, but modifying the quality, as in case of canola oil, which has a better quality, and so many other innovations. This is GM wheat, which was developed only a few years ago. It has good level of drought tolerance, and it has been introduced Australia, New Zealand, and these are the products which is being produced and consumed from this GM wheat. There are 4 crops which are GM crops which are very widely grown: corn, soybean, canola, and cotton. These are grown in many countries on large acreages, and there are a lot of publications on these four crops. So a couple of economists looked at the data, published data on these four crops, and then they summarized the results of this analysis from the data which is collected on yield, etc., and the use of pesticides, etc. So this is the sort of the summary of their work. For example, the yield increased 21.6% in all these GM crops. So that's a big benefit. And there was a reduction of 36.9% in the pesticide quantity used. Then pesticide cost went down by 39.2%. There was slight increase in the cost of production, which is primarily because of the higher cost of the seeds. And overall benefit to the farmers was 68.2%. So there is no doubt that these GM crops have benefited the agriculture greatly. And of course, you know that more than 30 countries are now growing GM crops of various kinds. I will now like to discuss with you some of the very important projects in breeding or crop improvement. And these are called Man on the Moon projects. During 1990s, early 1990s, we had a brainstorming with different scientists, and the Director General of the Institute was very encouraging. We identified 3 projects which should benefit the productivity and in many ways by increasing the productivity as well as in general management. So one was the improving the efficiency of photosynthesis. Second is nitrogen fixing cereals. Third was the Epimetic hybrids. So these were the projects were identified. Some work was started to take the improvement in the photosynthesis, because photosynthesis is one, along with the nitrogen fixation, two most important natural processes which have been feeding the populations all through the history. So this was one way to look at for improving the photosynthesis. There are 2 types of photosynthesis, C3 and C4. Rice and wheat are C3, maize is C4, and maize has much higher yield than rice and wheat because it's C4. C4 cereals are about 30% more efficient in photosynthesis. So there are a lot of other crops which also have C4 type of photosynthesis, and the differences are in the anatomy of between the C3 and C4, and then of course the biochemistry. So we had a scientist at IRI who wanted to look at this, and a lot of germplasm of rice was screened. Some lines were identified which had the anatomy which was quite similar to the C4 plants. But then the biochemical change is an extremely difficult process. And then at the end of the century, this sort of project, all these projects were really discontinued because of the funding problems as well as the our DG changed, so there was not very much interest, continued interest. But then this project has been now being investigated in the United States. They are not looking at changing the cereals from C3 to C4, but looking into the rubisco. Rubisco is the most important enzyme in photosynthesis. So there are a couple of labs, they are looking into modifying the rubisco to make it more efficient so that the photosynthesis can be improved. And at Cornell University, there is a group, they are looking into the gene sequences which are necessary for the production of rubisco. And they are they have a computational approach by looking into the genes which are responsible for rubisco. So that's one ongoing project. Then at University of California, Davis, there is a group, they are looking into the different types of rubisco from the evolutionary history and see the differences. And these differences then can be exploited for improving the rubisco enzyme further. And if these improvements can be made in rubisco, it will lead to the more efficient photosynthesis. So you can see that this is a very long-term project, like that's why it's called Man on the Moon project, because it will be a long project, but the benefits will be really great. Also, there was a lot of interest at the time, I mentioned it, in looking at the nitrogen fixing cereals, because most of the nitrogen which is fixed in the soil is because of the action of microbes which are free living, not the symbiotic type which is of course which occurs in the legumes. So if the cereals can be made to fix nitrogen symbiotically, that will be a major achievement. So some project was developed by the Professor Cocking in England, and there has been sort of the interest declined, and nothing really. The progress was not made. But now this project has been picked up recently at MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology. There is a huge project, multi-million-dollar project, and this is led by Christopher Wyatt at MIT. And the focus of this project is on cutting down the gases, the greenhouse gases. And one component of there are a lot of many kinds of greenhouse gases, and then these fertilizer which is used in crop production, because of the nitrification, quite a bit of that fertilizer is lost because of the nitrification, and the product is KNO3, or which is a very serious greenhouse gas. So the fertilizer application produces these greenhouse gases. The idea which this project is following is to develop the cereals which are nitrogen fixing, so that there will be no need for adding the fertilizer, and so that will cut down the greenhouse gases. So very unique project, and so there's a lot of interest in this this nitrogen fixing cereals. The third project which was discussed about was Epimetic rice. As you know, a lot of hybrids are grown, in many crops, and hybrids are not true breeding, because when you plant the seeds of the hybrids, that yield advantage breaks down. And so the farmers have to buy these seeds every generation for growing the hybrids. And that's, of course, is costly. So the idea was that we can develop the Epimetic rice, then there will be no need for the farmers to buy the seed every time. So some work was started at IRRI, but again, the progress was limited, although we screened a lot of materials to see if there was any possibility of existence of apomixis in the rice germplasm. But one of the scientists at the United States, in the University of California, Davis, has been working on this project, developing the Epimetic rice. And Dr. Sundaresan at the University of California, Davis, has been pursuing this project, and he has made tremendous progress. Almost 95% has been achieved. And for example, this is the F2 population from one of the hybrids. You can see the variation, which will be normal if there was no apomixis. And these are the progenies of Epimetic rice. You can see how uniform they are. And this is a tremendous progress. And once this technology is introduced, that will help the rice production greatly. But there are, Dr. Sundaresan tells me that a little bit more work needs to be done to fine tune it. So this is one of those 3 projects on the moon. Then I think we should look into the malnutrition due to the micronutrient deficiencies. As I mentioned earlier, there is a widespread malnutrition, and this is due to the deficiency of micronutrients in our food crops. The most important micronutrients are iron, zinc, and vitamin A. So the project was started by CGIAR called Harvest Plus to develop the crop varieties which have elevated levels of iron, zinc, and vitamin A, so that we can have improved the nutritional quality of these crops. There is a considerable variation for iron and zinc in the germplasm of various crops. Through conventional breeding, a lot of varieties have been developed with elevated higher amounts of iron and zinc. But before I discuss that, I just want to show this slide, the consequences of malnutrition, which is higher mortality, lower cognitive ability, lower work productivity, and stunted growth of children. So you can see this is the result of malnutrition. So improving the nutrition status of the children and adults is a highly effective way to increase economic productivity in agriculture and other sectors. And so this is the Harvest Plus program of CGIAR. And through this project, 393 biofortified varieties of 12 crops have been produced and introduced in 49 countries. So this has been almost a 30-year project, and a lot of progress has been made. You can see these beans, cowpea, lentil, pearl millet, they have higher amounts of iron, elevated amounts of iron. And then you have maize, rice, sorghum, wheat, which have higher levels of zinc. Vitamin A has been increased in bananas, cassava, maize, and sweet potato. These are some of the achievements, and I understand that 15 biofortified varieties have also been released in India. In Africa, for example, the yams or the sweet potatoes are the most important diet, and almost most of the Africans eat these sweet potatoes, and this is the type of sweet potato they have, and they don't have any pigments. But then there are these orange sweet potatoes which have very high levels of vitamin A, and these have been popularized, distributed in most of the African countries to tackle this vitamin A deficiency. So this is, of course, a conventional approach, and there has been genetic engineering approach to introduce vitamin A into rice. None of the rice varieties have vitamin A, so a lot of poor rice consumers suffer from vitamin A deficiency, which is a serious problem leading to blindness and poor health, etc. So this project to develop vitamin A rice was started by Erie and Rockefeller Foundation in early 1990s. And these two scientists started work on this. Dr. Ingo Putrikas in Switzerland, he is a molecular biologist and genetic engineer. Then Peter Bayer at one of the universities in Germany found that you need two different enzymes, two different genes to produce the beta carotene, which is the precursor of vitamin A. And so through the collaboration of these two scientists, it was possible to develop the so-called golden rice because of this color, yellow color. And the proof of this concept came about 1999. It took another 6-7 years to put these genes into improved high-yielding varieties because the variety which was modified was very poor in yield and other aspects. So the breeding work was done, and by 2007, the high-yielding rice varieties with this beta-carotene with yellow color were available, and they were then had to go through all the regulatory testing for bioavailability of the vitamins and for the biosafety of the environment, for safety of the consumers, and testing for the yield, etc. So by about 2012, the materials were ready. The regulatory work has been finished, but there was a lot of opposition from the activist groups who do not favor the introduction of GM crops. But finally, the Philippine government has taken the initiative. They have released this golden rice, which has the beta carotene for production of vitamins in the human digestive system. So this is the first country where the golden rice has been released. Last year it was approved by the government, and now the large amounts of golden rice has been produced. These are being distributed in the Philippines. You might see this, some of you recognize Dr. Willie Dar, who used to be the Director General of ICAR in Hyderabad. Now he is the Secretary of Agriculture in Philippines, and as you can see, along with his staff, they are distributing the golden rice seed all over the country. The Bangladesh is almost ready, and they are finishing the regulatory work. In Bangladesh will be the second country to release this golden rice. So that's some of the issues, ideas I wanted to discuss about plant breeding. And now I go to other 2 or 3 issues. One is the status of organic matter in soils of India. Soils of India could be much, we have good soils, most of them, many of them, but they could be more productive if there was additional or high level of organic matter in our soils. They will be even much more productive. So in the 20 centimeter surface layer of our soils, the organic matter is about 0.5%. Many of the soil scientists like Dr. Ratan Lal, they tell us that 2 to 2.5% of the organic matter in the soils will be much more beneficial. So there is a need to improve our soils for increasing the organic matter. The soils of India then needs to be improved, and recarbonization of soils is a long-term strategy. And one of the approach for doing that is the restorative agriculture. This is one of the very important approaches to improve the organic matter. Most of the organic matter in our soils comes from the plant roots. Traditionally in India, we have been using the above ground parts after harvesting the grains. We use the straw or stover for animal feed or fuel for fuel. So we harvest, remove all the above ground biomass. Most of the biomass which is utilized by the microbes for producing the nitrogen are the roots as shown here. These roots are the most important. They are even more important than above ground plant parts because they provide the opportunity for the microbes to fix the nitrogen, to produce the nitrogen, which is important, which is the basis for agriculture, for producing all the food. So these microbes are our biggest friends. And one spoonful of soil, there may be millions of these microbes, which are bacteria, fungi, protozoa, different kinds of microbes, utilize these roots and produce the nitrogen. So they are the microbes, really they feed the human population because they produce nitrogen. Without nitrogen, we cannot grow the crops. So we should do everything to provide the opportunity for the microbes to do even better job. So we should return the maximum amount of biomass to the soil using minimal tillage. And I know ICAR or IARI has developed a microbial spray which can be used for degrading the biomass. And we should practice good crop rotations. Rather than burning the straw, rice straw, we should put it back into the soil and provide the opportunity for the microbes to work on it, and rather than burning, we utilize it for producing more nitrogen. So when this straw is utilized by the microbes, they will produce more nitrogen, more fertilizer, and we don't have to burn the straw, because that is not only polluting the air, it's also when you burn the straw, it heats the soil, which kills the microbes. So when you can put this straw on the ground and use it as a base for producing more nitrogen by the microbes, it's tremendously useful. So what we are doing is we are feeding the microbes, and microbes feed us. So that's a tremendously useful situation. And farmers, rather than burning, they can get they can sequester the carbon dioxide, which goes back into the soil. And sometimes in many countries, there is a possibility to sell these carbon to get some even the income. So this is a win-win situation where farmers can stop the burning of the straw, provide more substrate for the microbes to produce, and sequester the carbon and sell the carbon benefits to get the income. One win-win situation. Stress water resources. I am sure many of the situations where the water resources are becoming a limiting factor, more and more limiting factor in growing the food. And for example, in Punjab, the water tables have gone down by 10 meters since 1973. At present, water tables are going down at the rate of 0.2 to 0.5 meters per year. And this is not an unlimited resource. And there are many predictions that during next 15 to 17 years, the people will not be able to withdraw the water from the aquifers because of this excessive pumping. And this is one of the most serious problems in North India, in Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan, UP, etc. And this is one of the culprits. Free electricity, we pump the water more than what is needed, and a lot of this water is wasted. Even farmers switch on the button, then go to sleep, and the water is running like that, and then so much water is wasted, so wasteful. So this is one of the reasons for this, the aquifers depleting. There are 1.4 million tube wells like these. Even farmers with 2 hectares have also the tube wells. Everybody wants a tube well, and there were no restrictions in installing the tube wells. So what are the policy interventions for improving this water management? I think the first important thing is to withdraw the subsidy for the tubal irrigation, because there's no reason for giving free, because when everything is free, it's misused. Start the direct sowing of rice instead of transplanting, because when you sow the direct sowing, you save 30% water. Then the policy intervention, which was just started by the present government to give the incentive to the farmers of rupees 15 per acre if they use the direct sowing or dry sowing of rice. Then introduced, of course, drip irrigation, which uses 70% less water. In the United States, for example, 80 million hectares is under drip irrigation. We have, I understand, 6 to 7 million hectares in our country, and this needs to be increased. Not every crop is suitable for drip irrigation, but many are. And here where I live in California, corn, tomatoes, all the vegetables, they are growing it with drip irrigation. So this is the one where we need a lot of investment, and the government maybe should give subsidy for introducing the drip irrigation. Some concerns have been said, well, drip irrigation, there will be no subsoil water going because there's no extra water which goes down into the subsoil. But that's I think, not a valid concern, because you are taking out only 30% instead of all of water for drip irrigation. Then, of course, the use of shorter duration varieties, reduce the area under rice in North India. That has been a sort of crying need for many years, reduce the area under rice. So what we need is introduce the crop diversity. Sorry, I wanted to show the slide, how much water is used in rice cultivation, growing the seedlings, transplanting, preparing the land. It needs a lot of water. But with the drip irrigation, that 30% water, with direct sowing, dry sowing, you can save that 30% water. And this is a very good intervention by the government to give them subsidy so that the farmers can switch over from traditional rice, which is grown with puddling and a lot of water wastage. And this is one of the solutions which is very promising. So we need to introduce the crop diversity, which is very important for reducing the area under rice as well. Rather than growing rice wheat every year, we have to introduce the new crops which should reduce the area under the monoculture of cereals and promote the cultivation of oilseed crops and pulses. Even our finance minister said that we have to put more emphasis on producing oilseed because we spend almost $2 billion on importing edible oils from other countries. And one way to do is to increase the area under oilseed crops. This is an excellent example where the rapeseed, sometimes called mustard, can be grown in the same season as wheat. It is much more beneficial for the soil because instead of growing cereal after cereal after cereal, if we can introduce the diversities, it's good. And this is a good oilseed crop. Now, most of the oil seeds, mustard is grown in the dry areas. So the average yield of mustard is about 1 ton, 1.1 ton in India. That's the average yield. But by planting these mustard in the irrigated, better managed areas of Punjab and Haryana, we can get up to 4 tons per hectare. Dr. Deepak Pental's hybrids can go up to 4 tons with the 30% yield advantage. And these are the type of materials which is a good substitute for reducing some of the area under wheat. during rice season, there's a very good crop for as a substitute, which is soybean. You can grow instead of rice, soybean can be grown. The soybean area in India is almost 12 million hectares, but the average yield is only about 1 ton. You see the average yield of soybean in India is 1.1 ton. It's 3.5 in Brazil, 3.75 in USA. I have seen in Iowa, which is where a lot of soybeans are grown, sometimes 5, 6, 7 tons per hectare. So it's a very good oil seed crop, very high, almost 40% is oil in the soybean. So this is a very good crop. And we should try to introduce it during the rice growing season by shifting the area to soybeans. And this can help us, all these two, the mustard and soybeans, they can help us to produce more edible oils, as mentioned by our finance minister. Pulses. India is the largest producer as well as largest consumer of pulses. We spent $1.5 billion on importing pulses. So we should divert some of that area to pulses. This mung bean, for example, there is an opportunity to plant in short duration mung bean before even rice is transplanted. There is some opportunity, and government is giving a lot of incentives. Actually, you can grow 2 crops of mung bean in place of 1 crop of rice, which should help meet us at least some of our requirements. Well, now rather than on food security or nutrition security, the emphasis on food systems. There was Food Systems Summit last year in September, where the discussions were on the food systems. So that includes food production, food storage, food processing, food distribution, food transportation, food waste. So this is the whole gamut of food systems which need attention rather than just on food production. So this was the message from that summit: end hunger, de-risk food systems, protect equality and right, boost bioscience, protect resources, harness digital technology. This was the take-home lesson from that summit. Finally, the last slide I want to discuss with you is the amount of employment and contribution to GDP from 3 sectors. Now, agriculture has the largest amount of employment, and contribution to GDP is only 20%. Services, 28% employment, and contribution 53% to the GDP. Industry, 28% and 25% contribution. So this has to change if we have to improve our agriculture. It will be evolutionary process. As the industry is developed, more people should move from agriculture into industry, so that the people or the pressure on or the population pressure on agriculture should go down and down, maybe 20% in agriculture. That will also improve the living standards of the people in agriculture, because 80% of the farmers are very small farmers, 1 to 2 hectares, and one can hardly have a better living standard with that kind. So if we move with the industrial development, a lot of people move from agriculture to industry, that will lead to increase in the farm size and more prosperity, hopefully, for the people involved in agriculture. Thank you very much for your attention. It was my pleasure to present this very important lecture on celebration of 75 years of our independence. Thank you again for the invitation, Dr. Agrawal, Dr. Mahapatra, Dr. Mishra.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for this excellent presentation. And I think you have not left any dimension of this important topic of India's pride in green revolution and the way forward. You started the story of this rice, the green revolution, then what are the breakthroughs, and then the soils, the food production systems, and the latest research, the government policies, and what the government should do. I think every topic, there cannot be any better information than what you provide. And people are so eager to listen to you always. I got so many mails, they were really waiting for your lectures. So really, it has been a great pleasure, sir, to listen to you. There are many questions, but more than the questions, there are many compliments to you. The audience are saying that it's a pleasure always to listen to you. So, sir, it's a great satisfaction that you agreed for delivering this lecture. And in those, if you permit, I can take some questions, sir?
Sure.
Yes. The one question is by Dr. Sanjay Rathore. What are the chances to breed successfully rice and wheat as the C4 plants?
Sorry, could you please repeat?
What are the chances to breed successfully rice and wheat as C4 plants?
It will be a long-term project to changing the biochemistry from C3 to C4 will be extremely difficult, but that's why it is called moon project on the moon project on the moon, so that because it's going to be very long. But then, there is always possibility with the modern techniques of breakthroughs of biotechnology and genetic engineering, molecular biology. I think this needs to be attacked, and as I mentioned, the work is already going on in the United States, couple of labs where they are looking into the Rubisco, which could lead to improvement in the photosynthesis. But to converting into C4, that's a very, very long-term project.
Dr. Deep Sharma, sir, is asking that can you name the wheat variety with GM release for drought stress tolerance, as you mentioned in your talk, since GM in cereals are still of concern?
I'm sorry, I do not remember, but I can look it up. It's a published data. I will look into that. I don't remember the name of the variety particularly.
Right, sir. Then I think most of them, they are the compliments only to you. So thank you, sir, for this wonderful talk. And it was early morning for you, but still you could make it. And in India, it is late evening, but still people got connected in a large number, 230 persons. And they were connected to your lecture. So it has been really a great benefit to our students, to our teachers, vice chancellors, directors, our many great other scientists who were involved from ICAR, our Indian Rice Research Institute, and many other institutes. So you can just see from this chat box. So thank you, sir, once again, and thanks to our audience for connecting to this great lecture. And Professor Khush sir, it's always a pleasure for us, for the whole ICAR, to invite you for any such platform and to listen to you. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. It was a great honor. I enjoyed it, and I am so proud that so many of our scientists were able to join, and I have very high regard for our scientists. They have contributed so much for improvement of agriculture, improvement of food production, and all the areas of agriculture. We should be proud of our manpower and our scientists. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. And many universities, they have connected your lecture to their auditorium, so where multiple persons are sitting. So you can see, yeah. So they were so eagerly waiting for this. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. Namaskar. And thanks to all.
Thank you.